Dr. Elena Cross pressed her palm against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching as twin suns cast an amber glow across the alien landscape of Kepler 442b. The research station hummed quietly around her, its automated systems maintaining the delicate balance that kept her alive on this distant world. 3 years had passed since she'd volunteered for this solo mission, leaving behind the comfort and safety of Earth to study the remarkable ecosystems of this uncharted planet. The station was modest, but efficient, built into the side of a towering cliff that overlooked a vast valley teeming with life. From her vantage point, Elena could observe the daily migration patterns of the hexapodal grazers, the aerial dances of the crystalline winged flyers, and the careful hunting rituals of the shadow stalkers. Each species had evolved in perfect harmony with their environment, creating a delicate web of interdependence that fascinated her scientific mind. Elena's days followed a careful routine. Dawn brought field observations documenting the behavior of the local fauna through her high-powered telescopes and sensor arrays. The afternoons were spent in the laboratory analyzing tissue samples and recording biometric data. Evenings were reserved for transmitting her findings back to Earth's xenobiology department, where her research was slowly revolutionizing humanity's understanding of life beyond their home planet. But Elena was not merely a passive observer. Her research had revealed disturbing signs of ecological disruption. The hegemony, a powerful interstellar alliance that claimed dominion over this sector of space, had been conducting covert resource extraction operations on Kepler 442b. Their mining probes and atmospheric processors were slowly poisoning the delicate ecosystem Elena had come to cherish. Her reports detailing this environmental destruction had created significant tension between Earth's scientific community and the hegemony's governing council. Unknown to Elena, her persistent documentation of the hegemony's illegal activities had marked her as a threat. In the sterile conference rooms of their orbital command station, high-ranking officials deliberated over how to handle this troublesome human scientist. They could not simply arrest her without causing a diplomatic incident with Earth, but her research threatened to expose their profitable extraction operations to galactic oversight committees. The solution they chose was elegant in its brutality. The hegemony maintained a stable of apex predators, genetically enhanced warriors from various conquered worlds, each designed for specific assassination missions. For Dr. Elena Cross, they selected Zrakor, a being whose very name whispered fear across the known galaxy. Zrakor belonged to the Vorthan species' ancient warriors whose homeworld had been absorbed into the hegemony centuries ago. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with obsidian skin that seemed to absorb light and eyes like burning coals. Zrakor was a perfect killing machine. Neural implants had enhanced his already formidable natural abilities, granting him superhuman strength, speed, and tactical awareness. He could track prey across multiple star systems, adapt to any environment, and eliminate targets with ruthless efficiency. The orders were simple. Travel to Kepler 442b, locate Dr. Elena Cross, and terminate her with extreme prejudice. Make it appear accidental, perhaps an attack by local wildlife, or a malfunction of her life support systems. The mission briefing emphasized that this was a priority assignment requiring absolute discretion. Zrakor accepted the mission without question, as he had countless others before. Emotion was a weakness that had been largely suppressed through years of conditioning and chemical enhancement. He felt neither remorse nor excitement at the prospect of killing this human scientist. She was simply another target, another obstacle to be removed for the greater glory of the hegemony. His ship, a sleek stealth vessel designed for infiltration missions, slipped through the void between stars with predatory grace. The journey to Kepler 442b took several weeks, during which Zrakor reviewed all available intelligence on his target. Elena Cross appeared unremarkable by human standards, mid-30s average height and build, with brown hair, often tied back in a practical ponytail. Her academic credentials were impressive, but hardly unique among Earth's scientific elite. What puzzled Zrakor was the apparent difficulty in eliminating such a seemingly vulnerable target. Elena lived alone on an isolated research station with minimal security. She had no military training, no combat experience, and no apparent allies within the hegemony's sphere of influence. Any competent assassin should be able to complete this mission in a matter of hours. Perhaps Zrakor reasoned the hegemony was using this assignment to test his performance after his recent neural upgrades. The modifications had enhanced his cognitive processing power and sensory perception, but the psychological effects remained largely unknown. This mission would serve as both elimination and evaluation. Kepler 442b appeared below him as a swirling mass of blues and greens with wispy cloud formations dancing across its surface. The planet's twin suns created complex weather patterns and tidal forces that had shaped its unique geology. As his ship entered the atmosphere, Zrakor engaged stealth protocols, rendering his vessel virtually invisible to Elena's sensor arrays. He landed in a secluded canyon approximately 20 kilometers from Elena's research station, far enough to avoid detection, but close enough to begin surveillance immediately. Zrakor emerged from his ship and breathed the alien air, his enhanced physiology automatically adapting to the different atmospheric composition. The scents carried on the wind told him stories of the local ecosystem. The musky odor of large herbivores, the sharp chemical signatures of territorial markers, and something else, something distinctly human. The terrain was challenging even for someone of his abilities. Jagged rock formations jutted from the valley floor like broken teeth, while dense forests of coral-like trees created natural mazes between the station and his landing site. Zrakor moved with fluid grace, his enhanced muscles carrying him effortlessly across the rough ground. His mission timeline was flexible, allowing him to study his target's routines and identify the optimal moment for elimination. For 3 days, Zrakor observed Elena from afar, learning her habits and schedules. Through high-powered optics, he watched her emerge each morning to collect environmental readings, noting the careful way she moved through the dangerous terrain. She seemed utterly unaware of his presence, focused entirely on her scientific work. Her daily routine revealed a woman of methodical precision and genuine passion for her research. What struck Zrakor as odd was Elena's relationship with the local wildlife. Most humans on alien worlds maintained careful distance from indigenous species, relying on barriers and deterrent technology for protection. Elena, however, seemed to have achieved some sort of understanding with the local creatures. He watched as she calmly collected samples while massive herbivores grazed nearby, utterly unconcerned by her presence. On the 4th day, Zrakor decided to move closer. Elena's morning routine took her to a series of sensor platforms positioned throughout the valley, each visit requiring her to venture further from the safety of her station. The optimal strike point would be the furthest platform where an attack by local predators would be most believable. He began his approach at dawn, moving through the coral forest with practiced stealth. The alien trees provided excellent cover, their branching formations creating natural blind spots that concealed his advance. As he drew closer, Zrakor could hear Elena's voice carried on the morning air. She was speaking into her recording device, documenting her observations with the kind of enthusiasm he rarely encountered among his targets. Day 247 of the Kepler 442b Ecological Survey. Elena's voice was clear and animated despite the early hour. The morning migration patterns continued to show remarkable consistency. The hexapodal grazers maintain their clockwise rotation through the valley, while the aerial symbiotes have begun their seasonal mating displays. The crystalline formations on their wings appear to be both communication tools and thermoregulatory structures adapting to the planet's complex solar radiation patterns. Zrakor paused, momentarily distracted by the human's obvious passion for her work. In his experience, most targets were either career politicians, focused on power, military officers driven by duty, or corporate executives motivated by profit. Elena's genuine fascination with alien life forms was something he had never encountered in an assassination target. He resumed his advance, positioning himself behind a cluster of sensor equipment. Elena was now only 50 meters away, kneeling beside a data collection probe while recording detailed notes about soil composition and mineral content. Her back was to him, presenting a perfect opportunity for a silent kill. Zra Kor reached for the neural disruptor at his belt, a weapon that would stop her brain function instantly, while leaving no trace of external trauma. But something made him hesitate. Perhaps it was the way Elena absently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear as she worked, or the gentle hum she made when particularly focused on a complex measurement. For the first time in decades, Zrakor found himself questioning an assignment. The moment of hesitation cost him the element of surprise. A small lizard-like creature that had been sunning itself on a nearby rock suddenly chittered in alarm, having detected his presence through some unknown sense. Elena immediately turned toward the sound, her eyes scanning the terrain until they locked onto Zrakor's position. Most humans would have screamed or fled at the sight of him. Elena simply stood, brushing dirt from her knees, and studied him with the same careful attention she gave to her scientific specimens. Her expression showed curiosity rather than fear, as if she were cataloging his features for future reference. "You're Vorthan," she said, after a moment, her voice surprisingly steady. "I recognize the bone structure and skin pigmentation from xenoanthropological studies. You're also significantly enhanced beyond baseline physiology, which suggests military modification. The question is, are you here to study this ecosystem like I am, or are you here to study me?" Zrakor found himself in an entirely unprecedented situation. His targets never initiated conversation, never displayed such calm analytical thinking in the face of obvious danger. The neural disruptor felt heavy in his hand as he considered his options. Complete the mission as ordered, or investigate this anomaly further. "I am Zrakor of the Hegemony's Special Operations Division." He replied, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to resonate through the ground. "I have been sent to terminate you, Dr. Elena Cross." "I see." Elena nodded thoughtfully, as if he had just informed her of a scheduling change. "May I ask why? Has my research violated some hegemony protocol I'm unaware of? Your documentations of unauthorized resource extraction on this world has been deemed problematic." Zrakor found himself answering her question, though he couldn't understand why. Prey was not supposed to engage in philosophical discussion with predators. The mining operations." Elena's expression darkened slightly. "Yes, I suppose my reports have been rather critical of the hegemony's environmental policies. I take it my supervisors on Earth aren't the only ones reading my research submissions." She began walking slowly back toward her station, and inexplicably, Zrakor found himself following at a distance. The logical choice would be to kill her now, complete the mission, and return to await his next assignment. Instead, he was drawn by a curiosity he hadn't felt since before his neural conditioning. "Are you going to kill me now?" Elena asked conversationally, as if discussing the weather. "Not that I'm particularly eager to die, mind you, but I'd prefer to know what to expect. I have several experiments running that really shouldn't be left unattended." Zrakor paused, surprised by his own uncertainty. The mission parameters allow for tactical flexibility in timing and method. "Well then, would you like some coffee? I know it sounds absurd, but I've found that most interspecies conflicts benefit from a bit of civilized discussion. Besides, I'm genuinely curious about Vorthan culture, and I suspect you might have questions about my research." Elena's research station was larger than it appeared from the outside, carved deep into the cliff face, with multiple levels connected by tunnels and lifts. The living quarters were Spartan, but comfortable with observation windows, providing spectacular views of the valley below. The laboratory section was impressive for its remoteness, equipped with advanced analysis equipment and specimen storage facilities. Elena prepared coffee with the kind of practiced efficiency that spoke of years spent in this routine. Srakor accepted a cup, partly because he was genuinely curious about this human beverage, and partly because the entire situation had moved so far beyond normal parameters that protocols seemed irrelevant. "So," Elena said, settling into a chair across from her assigned assassin, "what would you like to know?" "I assume the hegemony has briefed you on my background, but they probably focused on the political implications rather than the actual science." "Why do you care?" Srakor asked bluntly. "This is not your world. These creatures are not your species. Why risk your life to protect them?" Elena smiled, the first genuine expression of happiness Srakor had seen from her. "Have you ever seen something so beautiful that it made your chest ache? Something so perfectly adapted to its environment that it seemed like the universe itself was showing off. Every single species on this planet represents millions of years of evolution, solving problems, and finding solutions we couldn't imagine." She activated a holographic display showing various creatures from her research. "Look at this one, for instance. The shadow stalkers have developed a form of natural cloaking that bends light around their bodies. Not technological invisibility, but actual biological manipulation of electromagnetic radiation. Or these flying symbiotes, they've created a complex chemical communication system that allows them to coordinate herd movements across thousands of individuals without any central authority." Srakor found himself leaning forward, studying the displays with growing interest. His enhanced vision allowed him to see details that would be invisible to human eyes, and what he saw was indeed remarkable. These creatures had evolved solutions to survival problems that exceeded anything the hegemony's bioengineers had achieved. "The mining operations are destroying all of this." Elena continued, her voice growing passionate. "They're contaminating water sources with heavy metals, disrupting migration routes with their extraction equipment, and introducing toxins that are causing genetic mutations in the local wildlife. In 50 years, this incredible ecosystem will be nothing but a dead rock with some rare minerals missing from its crust. The hegemony requires those resources for expansion and development." Srakor said automatically, though the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. "Does it, or do some hegemony officials simply require those resources for profit?" Elena challenged. "I've run the calculations, Srakor. The minerals being extracted here could be synthesized more efficiently and cheaply using established technology. The only reason to mine them here is because it's essentially free, due to the lack of regulation in this sector." Srakor fell silent, contemplating Elena's words. His neural conditioning included loyalty programming that made questioning hegemony policies extremely difficult, but the logic of her argument was undeniable. He had participated in similar operations throughout his career, eliminating threats to hegemony interests, without ever examining the legitimacy of those interests. "Show me," he said finally. "Show me what you've discovered." Elena's eyes lit up with an enthusiasm that transformed her entire demeanor. For the next several hours, she guided Srakor through her research, displaying holographic models of the planet's ecosystems, sharing recordings of animal behaviors, and explaining the complex environmental relationships she had documented. Her passion was infectious, and Srakor found himself asking questions he never would have considered relevant to his mission. The neural disruptor remained on his belt unfired. As the day progressed, Elena suggested they venture outside so she could show him some of her research sites firsthand. Srakor's training screamed warnings about tactical disadvantage and mission compromise, but his curiosity had grown stronger than his conditioning. He found himself following Elena down a hidden path that led to a hidden grove where several species gathered each day at a natural spring. The sight that greeted them defied everything Srakor had been taught about predator-prey relationships. Creatures that should have been mortal enemies were sharing the same water source, maintaining a careful but peaceful coexistence. Elena explained the complex social protocols that governed these interactions, how different species had evolved chemical and behavioral signals to indicate peaceful intent. "It's not unlike what we're doing now," she observed quietly. Two species that should be enemies finding common ground through communication and shared purpose. Zra-Kor watched a massive herbivore lower its head so a tiny symbiotic cleaner could reach parasites behind its ears. The gentleness of the interaction was at odds with his worldview, where strength meant dominance and cooperation was weakness. My species fought for centuries, Elena continued. Wars over resources, territory, ideology. But we learned that survival required cooperation, that our greatest achievements came from working together rather than against each other. Maybe it's naive, but I believe that lesson applies beyond just human society. As evening approached, they returned to the station. Elena prepared a simple meal, sharing rations that had been designed for long-term storage but were surprisingly flavorful. They ate in companionable silence, watching as the twin suns set over the valley and nocturnal creatures began to stir. I should kill you, Zra-Kor said suddenly. My orders are clear, and failure to complete this mission will result in my own elimination. Elena nodded calmly. I know, and I understand that you're facing an impossible choice. But can I make a proposition? Zra-Kor gestured for her to continue. Stay here for a few more days. Help me with my research. If, after seeing everything this planet has to offer, you still believe that the hegemony's interests outweigh the preservation of this ecosystem, then complete your mission. But give this place a chance to change your mind. It was perhaps the most irrational decision of Zra-Kor's heavily programmed life, but he agreed. The following days passed in a blur of scientific discovery and unexpected camaraderie. Elena proved to be an excellent teacher, patiently explaining concepts that his military education had never covered. In return, Zra-Kor's enhanced senses provided her with data she could never have collected alone. His ability to track animal movements and detect subtle environmental changes opened up new avenues of research. Together, they discovered a previously unknown form of plant communication, where trees shared nutrients and information through complex root networks. They documented the mating rituals of the crystalline flyers, observing how their wing patterns created beautiful light displays visible from orbit. Most significantly, they uncovered evidence of higher intelligence among some of the larger herbivores, suggesting that this planet might harbor sapient life forms. As the days passed, Zra-Kor felt changes occurring within himself that went beyond his neural programming. The constant exposure to Elena's genuine passion for life had awakened something he thought had been permanently suppressed: empathy. He began to see the creatures around them not as biological machines following genetic imperatives, but as individuals with their own desires and purposes. Elena, in turn, found herself relying on Zra-Kor's presence. His enhanced abilities made fieldwork safer and more efficient, but more than that, his quiet intelligence and growing concern for the planet's welfare made him an ideal research partner. She began to forget that he had originally come to kill her. One evening, as they sat watching a meteor shower paint silver streaks across the alien sky, Elena finally asked the question that had been weighing on her mind. What happens when I've convinced you? When you decide that this planet is worth saving? What happens to you? Zra-Kor was quiet for a long moment. Assassination specialists who fail to complete their missions are considered compromised. If I return without confirmation of your death, I will be subjected to neural reconditioning that will strip away everything I've become here. If I refuse to return, I will be hunted down by others like me. Then don't return, Elena said simply. Stay here. Help me protect this place. You would trust someone who came here to kill you. Elena smiled. Zra-Kor, over the past week, I've watched you risk your life to save a wounded crystal flyer, spend hours observing hermit crabs, build elaborate sand sculptures, and learn to identify individual members of the hexapod herds by their unique markings. You're not the same person who arrived on this planet. She was right, and Zra-Kor knew it. The careful psychological conditioning that had shaped him into a perfect weapon was eroding day by day, replaced by something the hegemony had tried to purge from his mind choice. The hegemony will send others, he warned. then we'll face them when they come, together. That night, Zrakor made a decision that would have been impossible just weeks earlier. He activated his ship's communication array and transmitted a false mission report to the hegemony, claiming that Dr. Elena Cross had died in an unfortunate accident involving local predators. He included fabricated evidence and even staged photographs to support his story. The deception wouldn't last forever. Eventually, the hegemony would send investigators, or Elena's research would somehow reach Earth despite his report of her death. But it bought them time to find a solution that didn't involve murder or surrender. Elena had been working on a project that went far beyond simple environmental documentation. Using her research data, she had been developing a comprehensive ecosystem protection protocol that could be implemented across multiple worlds. Her work proved that planets like Kepler 442b were far more valuable as intact ecosystems than as stripped mining sites, providing resources and biological innovations that could benefit the entire galaxy. Together, Elena and Zrakor refined this protocol, combining her scientific expertise with his knowledge of hegemony politics and resource management. They created a proposal that reframed environmental protection as economic opportunity, appealing to the very motivations that drove the hegemony's expansion. But their work was interrupted by an unexpected crisis. Elena's long-range sensors detected unusual seismic activity in the mining sector, followed by rapidly rising radiation levels. The hegemony's extraction operations had destabilized an underground uranium deposit, triggering a potential nuclear catastrophe that could render the entire planet uninhabitable. Without hesitation, Zrakor and Elena raced toward the mining site in his stealth ship. The journey that should have taken several hours was completed in mere minutes, thanks to Zrakor's piloting skills and the ship's advanced engines. What they found was chaos automated mining equipment, running out of control radiation storms, poisoning the atmosphere, and no hegemony personnel in sight. The situation required abilities that neither possessed alone. Elena's scientific knowledge was essential for understanding the technical aspects of the disaster, while Zrakor's enhanced physiology allowed him to function in the radiation-filled environment. Together, they worked to contain the damage, Elena directing the shutdown procedures, while Zrakor manually operated equipment that should have killed any normal being. It took 18 hours of nonstop effort, but they managed to prevent what would have been an ecological catastrophe affecting the entire planet. As they collapsed exhausted beside the now silent mining equipment, Elena looked at Zrakor with unmistakable admiration. "You just saved an entire world," she said softly. "We saved it," Zrakor corrected. "I could never have done this alone." The mining disaster proved to be a turning point. Word of the near catastrophe reached Hegemony High Command, along with reports that a single human scientist and a supposedly dead Vorthon operative had prevented an environmental collapse that could have cost the hegemony billions in cleanup and compensation. More importantly, Elena's ecosystem protection protocol had reached sympathetic individuals within the hegemon's scientific advisory board. Her work demonstrated that worlds like Kepler 442b were infinitely more valuable as living laboratories than as depleted mining sites. The biodiversity, the potential for bioengineering applications, and the sheer scientific knowledge that could be gained far outweighed the value of extracted minerals. 3 months after Zrakor's supposed death, an official hegemony delegation arrived at Kepler 442b. Elena emerged from the research station to greet them, flanked by a figure that caused considerable consternation among the visitors. Zrakor stood beside her, no longer hiding his presence, wearing simple research gear instead of combat armor. The delegation's leader, a high-ranking administrator named Counselor Vex High, stared at the supposed corpse with undisguised shock. "Operative Zrakor, you were reported dead." "I was," Zrakor replied calmly. "The person who came to this world to kill Dr. Cross no longer exists. I am what remains." What followed was a 3-day negotiation that would reshape hegemony policy toward environmental preservation. Elena presented her research with Sci-Fi's support, demonstrating the economic and scientific value of intact ecosystems. The data from their disaster response proved their effectiveness as a team, while Sci-Fi's transformation served as a powerful argument for the value of cooperation over domination. The result exceeded Elena's wildest hopes. Kepler 442b was designated as the first hegemony ecological preserve, with Elena appointed as its chief scientific administrator and Sci-Fi as its primary guardian. More significantly, the ecosystem protection protocol would be implemented across dozens of other worlds, creating a new model for sustainable expansion that benefited both the hegemony and the native lifeforms of colonized planets. But perhaps the most important outcome was entirely personal. As the delegation departed and life on Kepler 442b returned to its peaceful rhythm, Elena and Sci-Fi found themselves alone again, standing on the observation deck as the twin suns set over the valley. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked. "Giving up your old life?" Sci-Fi considered the question seriously, as he considered all things. "I was not truly alive before. I was a weapon, a tool programmed to serve others' purposes. Now I choose my own path." "And what path is that?" "The same as yours. To protect this place, to learn from it, to make sure that future generations can witness the same wonders that changed both of us." Elena smiled and took his hand, her small human fingers intertwining with his enhanced ones. Despite all their differences, they had found something rare and precious, a partnership that transcended species. Purpose and the petty conflicts of galactic politics. As night fell over Kepler 442b, bioluminescent creatures began their nightly display, painting the valley in shifting patterns of blue and green light. In the distance, the shadow stalkers emerged to hunt, while the crystal flyers roosted in the coral trees, their wings creating soft, chiming sounds in the breeze. Elena and Sci-Fi made their way back to the station, sharing observations about the day's research and making plans for tomorrow's fieldwork. The hegemony had sent its apex predator to kill her, but instead they had found something far more powerful than death transformation. Years passed, and their work continued. Elena published groundbreaking papers on interspecies communication and ecosystem management, while Sci-Fi became the first of his kind to advocate for environmental preservation within hegemony military circles. Students and researchers from across the galaxy came to study on Kepler 442b, learning not just about alien biology, but about the possibility of cooperation between unlikely allies. One evening, as was their custom, Elena and Sci-Fi sat together watching the stars emerge in the alien sky. Age had touched Elena's face with lines and gray hair, while Sci-Fi's enhanced physiology showed little change. But the bond between them had only deepened with time forged through shared purpose and mutual respect. "The hegemony is sending another delegation next month," Elena mentioned casually. "They want to establish similar preserves in the Andromeda sector." "Will you go?" Sci-Fi asked, though he already knew the answer. "We will go," Elena corrected gently. "This work is bigger than just one world now." Sci-Fi nodded content, in the knowledge that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The predator they had sent to kill her now slept peacefully by her side, transformed by the very qualities they had tried to eliminate: compassion, curiosity, and the unshakable belief that all life had value. As the night deepened and the planet's 3 moons rose in sequence, Elena rested her head against Sci-Fi's shoulder. Around them, the sounds of the nocturnal world created a symphony of life, continuing its ancient cycles. Tomorrow would bring new discoveries, new challenges, and new opportunities to protect the wonders they had devoted their lives to preserving. But tonight, in the peace they had created together, it was enough to simply exist in harmony with the world around them. The apex predator and the human scientist, no longer enemy and target, but partners in the greatest adventure of all, the preservation of life itself. In the distance, a family of hexapodal grazers called to each other across the valley, their voices mixing with the whisper of wind through crystal formations and the gentle hum of the research station systems. It was the sound of a world at peace, protected by an unlikely alliance that had grown from understanding, nurtured by respect, and strengthened by love. And in that peace, Zrahor truly slept, no longer the weapon he had been created to be, but the guardian he had chosen to become. The predator's hunt was over, replaced by something far more precious, the chance to nurture rather than destroy, to build rather than tear down, to love rather than kill. The story of Dr. Elena Cross and Zrahor became legend across the galaxy, proof that even the most implacable enemies could become the closest allies, that transformation was possible for anyone willing to embrace it, and that sometimes the greatest strength came not from destroying your enemy, but from understanding them. And so they lived, worked, and protected the world that had transformed them, both a human and a Vorthon, united in purpose and bound by something stronger than the programming that had once driven them apart. The choice to be better than they were, to grow beyond what others had made them, and to prove that love could indeed conquer even the most carefully engineered hate. Under the twin suns of Kepler 442b, their story continued, a testament to the power of hope, understanding, and the fundamental truth that no one, not even an apex predator, was beyond redemption when faced with compassion and given the chance to choose a different path.